In today's lecture, I'd like to talk about a subject which is, in a sense, peripheral to the main ideas in this course, but it's one that's often taught when we're looking at present worth evaluations, because it uses the present worth calculations and involves a subject that many students find interesting. It's bond valuation. A bond is something that's issued by a company or a municipality to raise funds. And it's a promise to pay money to the person that purchases the bond. There are two important ideas associated with a bond that, once they're clarified, make the calculations for bonds pretty straightforward. Bonds have, first of all, what's called a par or face value. And it's the amount for which a bond can be redeemed after a certain period of time. So if I'm talking about a $10,000 bond, that $10,000 doesn't refer to its price today, and it doesn't refer to its price when it was issued. What it refers to is how much money the bearer received at the time that the bond matures. So it's some point in the future at which this money is received by the bearer. So it's the par or face value is a future value, not a present value. The second terminology is the coupon rate. The coupon rate is the rate that the bond pays to the bearer, kind of like an interest rate. And it's paid usually twice a year, semi-annually. Now, it's kind of like an interest rate, but it really isn't an interest rate at all. The coupon rate is a percentage rate. Let's say it was 10%, for example. That percentage is based on the face value, which of course is a future amount. So let's say it's a $10,000 bond, a 10% coupon rate. That means it would pay $1,000 per year. But it wouldn't pay $1,000 per year. It would actually pay $500, half $1,000 every 6 months. Now, it's not an interest rate because the worth of the bond is only indirectly related to its face value. And what it really is an expression of an annuity, an expression of a series of payments in the future happening generally twice a year. Now, the exact structure of the bond will vary from company to company or issuer to issuer. We see, for example, Canadian savings bonds have a completely different structure from what's given here because their cost and their face value coincide. The face value isn't a future value. 20 years ago it was. Canada savings bond would follow this structure. But because they're so popular and they've been adjusted for marketing reasons since. But corporate bonds tend to follow this structure, and municipal bonds, as particularly sold in the United States, follow this structure. But of course it pays to look at the details of a bond if you're considering buying one. But these principles apply in general. Let me give an example to help clarify this. A 7% 20-year municipal bond with a $10,000 face value pays $350 each 6 months and $10,000 after 20 years. First thing I want to point out is that first sentence is very redundant. Saying it's a 7% bond with a $10,000 face value is exactly the same as saying it pays $350 each 6 months and $10,000 after its maturity. Face value and the $10,000 after 20 years, same thing. The 7% of $10,000 is $700. Half of $700 is $350 every 6 months. So this question could have been phrased a 7% 20-year municipal bond with a $10,000 face value, or it could have been phrased a 20-year bond pays $350 each 6 months and $10,000 in maturity, and that's enough information. So there's redundancies there that you won't normally see in word problems. So that information just expresses a cash flow. The cash flow is $350 every 6 months and $10,000 future worth. Now, problem is I want to receive at least 10% interest compounded on this investment. How much should I pay for the bond? Even though the bond is face value of $10,000, I'll probably pay less than that for it because that $10,000 is in the future. Under certain circumstances, I might pay more depending on that coupon rate. But the price of the bond, the value of it, is only indirectly related to that coupon rate and face value. To determine how much I should pay for the bond, what I really want to do is find the present worth of that set of cash flows at my desired interest rate. If that present worth is, well, what that present worth represents is how much that bond is worth to me. So let's find the present worth of that. The present worth is going to have two components. First of all, there's the $10,000 face value. Now that's 20 years in the future. We've got 10% nominal interest compounded semi-annually. So we want to bring that to present worth, not at 10%, of course, at 5% every 6 months over the 40 6-month period in the 20-year total amount of time involved. So that's the present worth of that $10,000 face value. That's only one component of the overall cash flow because we've got this annuity too, the annuity that's represented by this coupon rate of 7%, which is then the $350, half of 7% of $10,000. Now that's an annuity. To bring that back to present worth, we use the series present worth factor at 5% over the 40 periods. Now, note in this expression, there's no 7% anywhere. Because that 7% is not interest. The 10% is the interest rate we're looking for. All that 7% is simply the expression of an annuity. And if we work through this calculation, we get $7,425.80. So the answer to the question, how much should I pay for this bond? I should pay no more than $7,425.80. If I pay more than that, I'm not going to earn the 10% interest I want. If I paid less than that, I do. Now, for bonds, there'll be a marketplace for bonds. There'll be quoted price for certain bonds. And you can use this figure then to decide whether the quoted price is a reasonable one for you. So bonds are a little bit tricky because they have this misleading terminology. The face value makes it look like they're worth more than they do because it's a future worth, and we know that depending on the interest rate, that future worth can be worth considerably less than it appears. And it also has this misleading information of the coupon rate, which looks like an interest rate, but really isn't an interest rate at all. But once you understand these principles of the par face value being a future worth, the coupon rate simply being an expression of an annuity, then the calculation for bonds is quite simple. It's just a cash flow that you convert to present worth. Now, of course, bonds also have a certain amount of risk involved in them. Municipalities do, even municipalities do go under. Companies certainly do all the time. You may lose your investment. But it certainly is worthwhile to be able to calculate the return of that investment in the first place. Thank you.